What's up, degenerates? This is Locked In, and I'm your host, Mason Cameron at PFF_Mace on Twitter. And with me, as always, my partner in crime, Vishaal Gupta at Vishaal_Gupta95 on Twitter. V, how are you doing? You were out last week, and we were just talking about it a little bit. Neil came on and filled in for you. It was a good time, except for, of course, anybody that knows Neil and I, we spent an hour and a half talking on half as many picks, but that's the way it goes. So V, you're back this week. How are you doing, buddy? How are you living? Are you excited to get some picks in today?
Yeah, glad to be back. Thanks again to Neil for stepping in. But yeah, very happy to be back. And yeah, definitely excited to talk about some picks this week. Already week 10 of the season. Some pretty good games on the slate. Some really good high powered matchups. So excited to get into some of those.
Yeah, you don't have to thank Neil. He owes me favors. I know where the bodies are hidden.
Oh, there you
No,
go.
I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, well, you know what else I have to do, V? Because, of course, I was late and I forgot to even attach our file here. Hold on. Let me share my screen. But we're going to be breaking into the games. We've got a good slate of games on tap for us this week. If I can figure out where my screen is to share. And there we go. All right. It wouldn't be a locked in show without some technical difficulties, but we get to talk about a great Thursday game, V. It was insane. Probably one of the games of the year. It really usually is when these two teams meet up. The Bengals really do have a knack for taking the Ravens to the woodshed when they can, playing their best games against them and then falling flat at the end to lose. So that's kind of how it goes here. Cincinnati 34, Baltimore 35. They covered, the spread on this was 5.5 for Baltimore. Game total on this game about 53 points. Cincinnati rather covers plus 5.5. Of course, they have that strange no man's land line. I don't really know. It was closer to 7, I believe, 6 or 7 when
I
we
saw it
talked about
6,
it
yeah.
on Friday. Yeah, so it moved a little bit in the days leading up to it. Over on the 53, 69 total points. Hard fought game through 3 quarters. It was pretty close. And then it exploded in the fourth and everything came off the rails. 35 combined points through the first 3 quarters, 34 in the fourth quarter alone. Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, they were absolutely incredible. They were insane. Combined for 718 yards, 8 touchdowns. And that's they did the same thing when they last played too.
Yep.
They don't care about defense. They don't care about running the ball. They're just going to throw it at each other all game long. Burrow himself, 428 yards, 4 touchdowns. Jamar Chase. Is he the best receiver in the league? Like, is it time to start having that conversation where he, is up there as the best? Because he can, at least when they play Baltimore, he has games like this: 11 catches, 264 yards, 3 touchdowns, literally unguardable, which is what makes everything at the end of the game so strange. So strange. So the Ravens down towards the tied game, about a few minutes left. I forget when they started that drive towards the end there. But with under 2 minutes left, they score to take the lead. And I said it in the moment. That's too much time. That is too much time for what Joe Burrow has been playing recently. And it ended up being too much time. Joe drives down the field. They get the score. But inexplicably, they missed the 2-point conversion. Now, I'm not against the 2-point conversion decision. I liked it personally. I think more teams should go for 2 on the road like that. Now, that's probably a difference in how people want to approach the game. That's a conversation for another day, or for today, I guess, whatever. But hey, it's a differencing of opinion. And people talking about the missed calls, like the face mask and the defensive holding on the 2-point conversion. But why are we not talking the fact that they threw the most crucial ball in the game to Tanner Hudson?
Yeah, that's not
Huh?
the guy you want to be targeting or featuring on that last play there, right?
Yeah, no, I don't even care. They could have put all 11 guys on Jamar Chase. I'm throwing him the ball. I'm throwing him the ball. There's nothing on this planet that would put me, if I was in Joe Burrow's shoes, to not be throwing that ball to Jamar Chase. Not quite sure what happened there. But yeah, otherwise, a very interesting game, a great game, a barn burner. V, what did you make of this one and what happened out there? It was crazy.
Yeah, awesome game. It felt like every time you looked up, somebody was taking the ball to the house because there were so many just big plays. Whether it was two of Jamar Chase's touchdowns, the Tylan Wallace touchdown, just over and over and over again, just massive touchdowns in this game. So incredibly fun to watch. Feel pretty bad for Cincinnati. I mean, I feel like they've been playing really well this year, as opposed to like the last couple of years where it feels like they started off slow because they weren't playing well, and then they had to kind of fight their way back into things. And Joe Burrow was playing hero ball and stuff like that. I mean, this year, I mean, they got off to a slow start, but it really wasn't because they were playing poorly offensively. Burrow has been great start to finish, minus that first game against New England. It's just the defense is not held up, which is unfortunate to see. You still have beasts on that side of the ball like Trey Hendrickson, who's a monster. A couple of times he was close to bringing down Lamar last night, just wasn't able to finish those plays. So tough to see for Cincinnati sitting at 4-6. Definitely a long shot at this point for them to make it into the playoffs. But you never know; they could definitely sneak in there as a 7 seed and make some noise in the playoffs. For Baltimore, though, what else can you say though besides Lamar Jackson is just unbelievable, just playing out of his mind right now. I did not expect him to be as good as he was last week against a good Denver defense. He does that, he demolishes them, and then comes back 4 days later and just puts on another show against the Cincinnati defense. If you didn't already think he was the clear front runner for MVP, you absolutely do now. I know Goff is playing well. I know Jaden Daniels is playing well, and some other guys are playing very well, but it's Lamar one, and it's not even close to anybody else behind him. And then if he goes, I think they're going into Pittsburgh next week, and if he has another good game there against a team that he has historically not played well against, I might be ready to just call that race after week 11, as early as that might sound. But if he can have a solid game and win going into Pittsburgh next week, I think just end the MVP race after week 11 and just give it to Lamar, because what he's doing so far is pretty unbelievable.
The fadeaway, he's playing a different game out there. He's
Yeah.
not playing the same game that everybody else is. And it's something we talked about last week with, or I think it might have been a couple weeks ago, or maybe even last week, but Josh Allen has been up there in
Mm-hmm.
terms of MVP voting odds. And, we touched on that. I'm not quite sure if people forget he had a game where he had 25 dropbacks and 9 completions. Like, there is a difference in what these guys are doing. Not to down what Josh Allen is. Josh Allen's an incredible player, and he takes what defenses give him, and maybe his stat sheet isn't insane every single week, but he does what he's capable of and brings home wins. There's just a huge difference in what Lamar is doing right now.
In normal years, we would certainly still be talking about Josh Allen near the top. It's just this is feels like an outlier based on what Lamar is doing right now.
In a day where they did not seem to have it offensively for the first 3 quarters. Now, it's not like they didn't score, but they had the 80-yard Tylan Wallace touchdown where 3 dudes missed a tackle and he may have stepped out, twice. Like, that was the type of play they needed to keep this game close for the first few quarters. And then in the fourth quarter, it just was like, okay, he's got to try now. And then he did, and then they win. And that just tends to be how it goes. I don't know if anybody can stop him right now. He does this to good defenses. He does this to bad defenses. I don't know if there's many ways to beat him. I know they literally just lost to the Browns a couple weeks ago. I think that's more of a trap game, as they weren't really expecting a big offensive performance or whatever, or them to match them. And sometimes if you fall asleep, you just can't wake up and turn it on, late in the game. And maybe that's going to be their Achilles heel down the stretch, is the team that beats them is them. But
Yep.
That's a good situation to be in most weeks. So it's going to be interesting to see how they go. And let's see, you did say that they have Pittsburgh next week. It doesn't look like they've even considered any future lines from what I'm seeing so far, but 10 days of rest, good defense. Let's see what happens. So,
yep.
All right. Now we get to head into the good stuff on the week. Week 10 slate. It's week 10, right? Gosh, man, the season. The season continues to fly. So the first game we have on the slate here is a good one. And it might not seem like a good one if you were trying to break this down like 2 months ago. This was
Right.
not a game on the schedule you circled on the schedule, but this is a game both teams have circled on the schedule right now as Pittsburgh heads into Washington to take on the Commanders. The Commanders are 2.5 point favorites here. Game total on this one about 45 points, depending on where you're shopping. Just some of the trends here for this one. Two of the best teams against the spread this season. Washington 7-1-1 against the spread, while Pittsburgh is 6-2. Both teams have covered 3 straight. Washington hasn't dropped a game, like directly not covered a game since week 1. They had the push against Baltimore a few weeks ago, and every other thing has been covers. So that's obviously a positive. But on the other side, Pittsburgh is 2-0 against the spread with Russell Wilson under center. And like I said, they covered their last 3. So something's got to give in this one, V. Which way are you leaning on it?
Yeah, I am going to lean towards Pittsburgh plus 2.5 in this game. I think this is going to be one of the best matchups we see all weekend. And the specific matchup I'm looking at is Pittsburgh's defense against Washington's offense. It feels like two strengths colliding, and we're going to see which one comes out on top, and it's going to be fun to see. Starting with Pittsburgh's defense, they have allowed 20 or fewer points in all but one game this year. They're tied for 4th in takeaways, and they're allowing the 4th fewest rushing yards per game. Why is that important? Because Washington's offense has the fewest turnovers in the league with just 3 all season, and they rank 3rd in the league in rushing yards per game. So there's literally strength versus strength, and we're going to see who comes out on top for both of those scenarios. The only other above average defense Washington has really played this year was Chicago, and they didn't score a touchdown in that game until the very final play on that Hail Mary. So it's going to be interesting to see what Jaden Daniels and company can do against this Pittsburgh defense with TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Minkah Fitzpatrick, all those beasts on that side of the field. And then one injury note to note for Washington's offense. Brian Robinson was ruled out earlier today with a hamstring injury. I think this is his 2nd or 3rd straight game he is going to miss. So definitely going to be a big loss for them. I just doesn't feel like Austin Eckler is going to be able to, maintain a workhorse like pace against this Pittsburgh defense. I think they're going to try to sprinkle in some Jeremy McNichols, try to get Jaden Daniels on some read option plays and do some of that stuff. But that's pretty risky when you're going to have guys like TJ Watt chasing you down. We've already seen Jaden Daniels get a little bit banged up. You don't really want to put him in that scenario against this strong defense. It's going to be really interesting to see what they do rushing wise without Brian Robinson, because that is definitely a major focus for this Washington offense is running the football. On the flip side, Pittsburgh's offense looking much, much better with Russell Wilson under center. You already mentioned it. They're 2-0 against the spread, 2-0 straight up. They've scored 37 and 26 points with Russell Wilson, over 400 yards of total offense in both of the games that he's played. In those 2 games, Russell Wilson has 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, so doing a very good job taking care of the ball. Unsung hero on that Pittsburgh offense so far through this season has been Najee Harris, who I think a lot of people were pretty down on after his last couple of seasons in Pittsburgh, not really producing as much as people were hoping for a first-round pick. But he's having the best year of his career since his rookie season. He's averaging career high 4.4 yards per carry and a career high 74 yards per game. He has 3 straight games with over 100 rushing yards. He's going up against a Washington defense that allows the 4th most rushing yards per game. So I really feel like Pittsburgh's offense can get something going, whether it's through the air or on the ground, and do some damage against this Washington defense. Defense that will be without Marshawn Lattimore, who they traded for earlier this week, but he is still dealing with a calf injury, so don't expect to see him this week.
Yeah, and they need him.
Yeah.
They are going to need him very badly because, if anything, that is their weakest point. Benjamin St. Juste out there is struggling, to say the least. So they definitely need him. They need him. Calf, hammy, I thought
Something in that area, yeah.
Something on that. But either way, he's definitely got to get healthy, and that's going to be a big one. You were talking about Najee Harris. This is something that we talked about a little bit a few weeks ago, or might have. I don't really remember. It's something I wrote about a few weeks ago. Heading into that Jets game, I'm pretty sure it through like the last 3 weeks or sometime through October or something, he was the highest graded back in the NFL over like a 3-game span or whatever. So I don't know that I would have ever expected that
No, me
2 months
neither.
ago because I think everybody was down. He's gotten comments recently from other defenders saying that he's soft and, other backs run harder. And he said, oh, okay. And that is actually one of the things that's super interesting about him is I think a lot of people take him as more of a power back, and he is a powerful back, but he's also an elusive back. He breaks a lot of tackles and does not let dudes get clean hits on him. So it's one of those things that it's like, maybe he's playing into your expectation of him, and it's coming out in his favor right now because he is playing very, very well. You talked about the running game on the Commanders too. What are we gonna do? Like they're resting Brian Robinson because they know they're about to take a long run, a long deep run into the second half of the season and into the playoffs, and they want to have a healthy running game, and I commend them for that.
Yeah,
It's
they're on a
gonna
short
come
week this week, going into Philly on Thursday night next week, so it makes a ton of sense for me too.
exactly. So it's one of those things that it's like they're going to take their lumps on this one, and they're going to hope that they can do what they can to win. But at the end of the day, their running game is not the same. That's a huge, huge thing for them because, I watched the Brett Coleman video a handful of weeks ago on this offense, and something that they really try to do is get themselves in 2nd and 5. And when you can't run the ball efficiently, that makes that a lot harder. So they throw a lot of screens. I would expect a lot of screens in this one too. Really play on kind of this defense that is aggressive and try to get them over pursuing and things like that. And maybe they can get that going. But man, this Pittsburgh defense is stacked. They're playing really good offensively. This is a tough team, and it's something that we talk about a lot, but coaching is huge. You're going to get Mike Tomlin. You're on the road. You can get it at a clean 3. If you shop around, it looks like MGM might
Earlier in
have
the
it
week,
at
I
3.
saw it at 3. That looked really juicy.
Yeah, so if you can go get it at 3, like, hey, all more the credit to you. This is going to be a tougher matchup for the Commanders, but Commanders still a really good team. They're getting better on defense. They're still not great. Big issues are secondary, like you said, but they'll need Marshawn Lattimore back. So, or need him healthy,
On the
I
field.
guess. Back isn't necessarily the word, but they need him on the field. The next game on the slate here, we have the Buffalo Bills heading into Indianapolis to take on the Colts. They are 3.5-point road favorites, that being the Buffalo Bills. Game total on this one, 46.5 points. I see you're liking Buffalo here to cover on the road. Some of the things that we've talked about in terms of trends with some of these teams, Indy was one of the best teams against the spread there for a long time. They suffered their first loss against the spread last week. First loss since week 2, rather. Excuse me. That ended a 6-game cover streak. They're still 7-2. It's something that a lot of the times we haven't quite been able to explain, frankly, why they cover so many games but don't really play that well any single week. And a lot of them are weird spreads and things in the market and things like that. But I like where you're going with this one. I completely agree. Tell us why you're on the side of Buffalo here to cover.
Yeah, liking Buffalo -4 in this game. I just think Buffalo's offense is rolling right now. 3 straight games where they've scored 30 or more points. They are 4th in the NFL in points per game so far this season. Josh Allen, we talked about it a little bit at the top. Even though he's not necessarily at the Lamar Jackson level right now in terms of production, he is still playing very, very well right now. 17 passing touchdowns, just 2 interceptions, 3 rushing touchdowns on the year. He has a 0.8 interception rate so far. That's his lowest rate of his career. Allen has been known throughout his career as very much as a gunslinger. He can make some amazing plays, but he can also turn the ball over at a high clip. He is not doing that this year. He's doing a tremendous job taking care of the football. And if Josh Allen is not turning the ball over, good luck beating that team. This Buffalo offense, middle of the pack in terms of rushing the ball, but to be honest, that's an improvement based on where they have been the last couple of years. So when you're going to have Josh Allen playing as well as he does in the passing game, and then you can be at least middle of the pack in terms of rushing, very, very hard to stop this offense. They do have a couple injuries to be aware of on offense. Amari Cooper is questionable with a wrist injury. He was limited all week, so we'll see if he can go. And then Keon Coleman has already been ruled out in this game. I don't think it's going to matter too much because there's still so many guys that you like on this Buffalo offense in terms of weapons, whether it's Khalil Shakir, Dawson Knox, Dalton Kincaid, James Cook out of the backfield. You're really liking what you're seeing out of Ray Davis. He took a short pass for a 60-yard touchdown last week, did a fantastic job. So if you're going to get contributions out of all these guys, even with a couple injuries, it's not a big deal. They're going up against a Colts defense that ranks in the bottom 10 in terms of passing yards allowed and rushing yards allowed. So I just don't have very much confidence whatsoever in Indy's defense to be able to keep up in this one against Buffalo's offense. On the flip side, I know a lot of us have been clamoring to see a little bit more of Joe Flacco this year because it's just been hard to watch Anthony Richardson. And it feels like when Flacco has been in games, Indy's offense has been much more productive, but that's not actually been the case. Flacco has started 3 games this year. In 2 of those games, Indy scored a total of 33 points. They scored 20 against Tennessee and then just 13 against Minnesota last week. Flacco had less than 190 passing yards in both of those losses. So, passing game has not been significantly better with Flacco under center. It might look more efficient. It might not look as erratic as it does with Anthony Richardson, but in terms of results, it's still not quite where I'm guessing Steichen and the rest of that Indy coaching staff was hoping for. The big thing for Indy's offense, though, is that they need to get Jonathan Taylor going. He had just 59 total yards last week. That's not going to get it done. If you can get Jonathan Taylor going on the ground, then that will give Indy a chance in this game. But overall, I think Buffalo is going to have a lead in this game. It's going to force Indy to be in a passing situation to catch up, and I don't think that's going to work out in their favor. And one more injury note, Michael Pittman ruled out for Indy's offense in this one.
Yeah, and that's a tough loss for them, particularly because Joe Flacco forgot how to throw the ball to Josh Downs last week, and I took a big loss on that one. And of course, we both took Indy to cover because
it looked good for like 3.5 quarters, I think.
Hey, why not, man? They've been great against the spread. I thought it was a good value too, and we both took an egg on that one. And it's something that also is this is another reason why this team just doesn't make a lot of sense in terms of like betting markets and results and what we're seeing out of the Colts. Those games that they didn't score very much with Joe Flacco, they also didn't have Jonathan Taylor. And now they had Jonathan Taylor back and then still didn't score that much. So it's like, okay, what something's got to give at some point. So I completely agree. We don't know what we're going to get from them, but right now we do know what we're going to get from Buffalo, and that's pretty solid offensive play and some tenacity on defense. They're not like terrible on defense. They're not great, but they have some pride. They go out there, they have some players. They're going to get Von Miller back, so that's a big plus.
We signed a couple players that they've had previously. I don't remember off the top of my head, but they made a couple signings this week. So I think they're trying to do what they can to bolster that unit.
Yeah, exactly. They cleared up the Mike Edwards roster spot because he kept being a healthy scratch, and it's like, might as well go fill it with a spot, that you're going to get something from. He went to Tennessee, and we talked about the Josh Allen thing. The Josh Allen thing's really funny too because he's only got 2 interceptions on the year, and one of them is definitely not his fault. The one last week that hit, Keon in the face, hit Keon in the face. That one's not his fault. But on the other hand, he's also had a lot of turnover luck because he's got 11 turnover worthy plays. Now, some of those are fumbles and things like that. So it's not necessarily all interceptions, but it is funny how sometimes the box score works out with, and it's not to discount his play. 17 touchdowns is a boatload, and he's, doing what he needs to do to put his team into position to win. And sometimes, you got to stick the ball into some dangerous situations. It happens, but it's funny because his interceptions aren't necessarily on him, but he's got ones that should have probably been pinned to him too. So this will be a definitely good game. I agree with you. Buffalo's going to probably have a pretty early lead, and it's going to be tough there. So interesting to see that one play out for sure in the early window. Next game we have on the slate here is one that we are both in on, that we both definitely agree on here. The Atlanta Falcons are heading into New Orleans to take on the Saints. They are 3.5-point favorites on the road. Game total on this one, 46.5 points, 46.5 points, depending on where you're shopping. V, what are you seeing in this one? What are you targeting? How are you liking it?
Yeah, I'm going to continue to take Atlanta, I think, until they prove me wrong or until they play, the better team, to be honest. I've taken them 2 weeks, the past 2 weeks, so that's going to be the third week in a row. And it's a lot of it has to do with, I think Atlanta's really good, but to be honest, a lot of it also has to do with they're playing like just not great teams. Played Tampa Bay a couple of weeks ago after they had all their injuries. They played a horrendous Dallas team last week, and now they're going up against a New Orleans team that, really one of the main reasons I put this game on my list here was so I can spend a few minutes railing against this New Orleans teams because they are terrible football team and it's just hard to watch. But let's start with some positives with Atlanta's offense. They've scored 26 or more points in 5 of their last 6 games. They've scored 31 or more in 3 of their last 5. In their last 5 games, Kirk Cousins has 13 touchdowns to just 3 interceptions. He's playing really well. The other guy who's playing really well and has been the key to this offense is Bijan Robinson, over 100 yards from scrimmage in 4 straight games. He is averaging more than 5.3 yards per touch in each of those 4 games. The other guy who's been key is Darnell Mooney. He has really emerged as a true weapon in this offense. You pair him up with Kyle Pitts, Bijan, and Drake London. Very, very difficult offense to stop. Now they're going up against a Saints defense that just gave up 23 points to Bryce Young. I'll say it again. They gave up 23 points to Bryce Young. I'm going to put that in a little context to show you guys how difficult that is. Bryce Young had not scored that many points since week 16 of last season. Last week was only the 3rd time in Bryce Young's career where Carolina's offense scored more than 21 points. Prior to allowing Bryce Young to score 23 points, the Saints allowed 26 or more points in 5 straight games. The end result, Dennis Allen was finally fired way too long. I have no idea why the Saints kept him on for so long. A guy who did truly nothing in his coaching career, whether it was in Las Vegas or whether it was here in New Orleans, just couldn't do anything. They fired him, and to be honest, it's not going to make any sort of difference. The Saints defense ranks in the bottom 10 in passing yards and rushing yards allowed. They don't have Kool-Aid McKinstry in this game. They're a rookie from the last draft. They traded Marshawn Lattimore, so they're going to be very thin in the secondary. It's going to be bad for the Saints defense for a while to come. I just don't see them being able to slow down this Falcons offense whatsoever. And then the Saints offense just super banged up right now. Chris Olave and Cedric Wilson have been ruled out. They have been without Rashid Shaheed for a while. Bub Means is also out. I was looking at their depth chart earlier to see who they have left, and I saw MVS, Mason Tipton, and Jermaine Jackson. If the only guy I know on your depth chart at wide receiver is MVS, you have a serious problem. They also banged up on the offensive line. Lucas Patrick was ruled out, and Eric McCoy is doubtful. So, Saints, You're bad. You're really bad. Enjoy the 1st or 2nd pick in the draft next year because this is not turning around anytime soon.
Yeah, just fire Dennis Allen. Like, there's a lot going. There's a lot going poorly, and I have a tweet here from Bill Barnwell of ESPN just to put into context how bad.
This is a good one.
How bad the game was. So for anybody, let me see if I can't zoom that in. Yeah, there we go. The Saints, and big shout out to Bill Barnwell, great reporter. You guys should go follow him. Saints outgained the Panthers by 150 plus yards, ran for 150 plus yards, and won the turnover battle. Over the last 20 years, teams had gone 275-0 with that formula. They are now 275-1. That is all you need for context in how poorly it's going. Even when it goes well, you give up 23 to one of the most underwhelming. I was going to say something a lot meaner. One of the most underwhelming quarterbacks we've seen play over the last 2 seasons. Yeah. That's all you have to say. So I completely agree. Atlanta, they're clicking. They're going well. Yeah. Nothing's going right in New Orleans right now. This game's only 3.5. Why is this game not 6? I'm so confused by that. So
doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Anyway, it's got to be some sort of baked in like interim head coach. Like I know that there's always stats around of like the interim head coaches win X number of times. And that's for
the one thing you will say is that one thing you can say against Atlanta is that their defense is still not super inspiring right now. So if they were going up against a competent offense, You
They
know, you can
might
understand
be
taking the
right.
other side, but that is not the situation here. So let's
That is
not worry
not the
about it.
situation. Yeah, exactly. The next game we have on the slate. So I had another one on the slate, which I do have to talk about for a second. I was in on Minnesota, but unfortunately, Minnesota Jacksonville, right? Yeah, I'm
Yep. Yep.
forgetting. Trevor Lawrence is out.
Yeah.
So I took that game off my slate. It's something we'll monitor moving forward. Join the Discord if you have not. Importantnonsense.com. That's how you become a member. That's how you get in our Discord, ask us questions, see our picks, all that good jazz. That's something I'm going to monitor moving forward. I was liking the over on the total. I was thinking it was very reasonable. I might still get in there. Part of that was because Jacksonville is actually playing decent on offense. Now, it's not pretty and they're not winning a lot of games or really doing much of anything. But this week, no Trevor Lawrence. He is out with a non-throwing shoulder, I believe. So we don't have that game on the list. Just full disclosure for everybody, because
Yeah, I'm
that's
going to
I
have
have.
that on my card as well in terms of the spread pick. I did get in on that game early in the week, so my spread pick is going to look different than the final result. Well, I'll write about that in our Discord, so come in there and make sure you guys check it out
Yeah, come hit
for
us
that
up.
Minnesota Jacksonville game.
Yep, come hit us up, definitely. So the one that we have on the slate instead, San Francisco. Well, not I shouldn't say instead because I like this game a lot anyway.
Yep.
San Francisco heading into Tampa Bay. They are a 6.5-point favorite on the road, that being the 49ers. Game total on this one, 50 points, about 50.5 points, depending on where you're shopping. The big thing is, as much as the injuries to Mike Evans and Chris Godwin hurt this team, they're surviving offensively, and that's commendable for them. The real issue comes down to the defense. They can't guard anybody. They can't stop anybody. Teams score at will against them. Effectively, they're very, very poor right now. Just some trends over the last three. 34 points per game allowed. That is 30th in the NFL. They have the worst EPA per play allowed. 6.3 yards per play allowed. That's 29th. 40.6% successful play rate allowed. That's dead last. The list, we're not even done, V. This is half of the list of things that they do very, very badly. 41.9% touchdown drive allowed percentage. That's last by a country mile. The next worst team was Tennessee at 34%. 34. 41.9 versus 34%. That's how bad that is in touchdown percentage. And it gets even worse in the red zone. 81% touchdown percentage in the red zone. I don't know that I've seen a number that bad in a long, long time. And that just brings me to the return of CMC. I talked about it today over on the PFF Daily podcast. If you guys haven't checked that out, go hit it up. We talked about Christian McCaffrey. It's a lot of fun, man. They're going to have a lot of fun getting him back. Obviously, getting back the offensive player of the year is a boost to literally any offense in the league. But with this team in particular, he is a perfect fit. We've gone over this a bunch. They really missed him in that first 8 games. And this team has been just hanging on by a thread and treading water ever since, waiting for the return of CMC. And now they get it. Something that has been a big issue for them is their own red zone efficiency, which is why I brought up Tampa Bay's red zone efficiency numbers. San Francisco struggled. They only are converting a red zone touchdown like 49% of the time. They're ranked 24th, I believe. And that changes everything when you get CMC in the game, because he is one of the most elite ball carriers, one of the most elite weapons, period. And when you get in the red area, that creates a lot of pressure on defenses. Even without playing this year, he ranks at the top of the NFL in red zone touches since he came into San Francisco. Week 7 of 2022, I believe, was what the stat was. Tampa Bay versus a run this year is atrocious. They're terrible. 4.9 yards per carry. And this is tough. This is tough to say because it's really all fallen off a cliff. They were pretty productive just generally defensively early on in the year, and it's just plummeted since the start of October. And it's because of reasons like this. They run the ball well, they throw the ball well, they don't stop the run at all, and they don't stop the pass at all. So every game tends to be a shootout. 4.9 yards per carry, 1.6 yards before contact per attempt. Both of those are bottom third of the NFL. I mean, there's not a whole lot more you can say. I think San Francisco is going to get a pretty hearty lead here, try to choke out the clock. Now, Tampa can do something. Bucky Irving's been fantastic. Rashad White, fantastic. They're really, really good on the ground. But I just don't think that that's going to be enough to keep up with an offense that has, frankly, played well, even if they've treaded water and even if they're only 4-4 against the spread. And now they're going to absolutely boom. And I think a lot of something that we've seen is that all throughout the first half of the season, odds of winning the NFC have been pretty consistent. The Lions up there at the top, Minnesota starting, or I shouldn't say starting, they creeped up pretty quickly. But right there in the mix has always been San Francisco. No matter how poorly they played, no matter the games that they lose, injuries have obviously been a huge concern. And I think things like that are baked into why odds makers still believe in this team, why this team every single week is a favorite, a large favorite, regardless of if they're home, regardless of if they're away. They are a big favorite. And it's for moments like this. Now, we're going to learn a lot from this game, obviously. If it were any other team, I'd be slightly hesitant. I don't think the Bucks have anywhere near the defense to check San Francisco if they're clicking. So I'm on the side of -6.5 here. V, are you seeing anything in this game that I'm not seeing?
Yeah, when I was looking at this game last week in terms of look ahead lines, this game was Tampa Bay plus 5.5, and I was really tempted to take that because it just felt like 5.5 is a lot of points for a San Francisco team, especially offensively, that was just not performing super well, whether it's the injuries that they were dealing with or the play of Brock Purdy just not being up to the standard he set for himself last season and the year before that. So it was like 5.5 just seems like too many points. Tampa Bay looks like a good pick there. They're playing well offensively, even though their defense is pretty horrendous. But the big key, CMC coming back this week, a running back coming back moved the line a full point. You are not going to see that very many other places in the league right now. Maybe with guys like Saquon Barkley, maybe with somebody like Derrick Henry or Bijan Robinson. But when you're seeing it for CMC, it's definitely going to happen. And you understand why. He is so important to that offense. He is so talented, and Kyle Shanahan knows exactly how to use him. So it totally makes sense to me, and it's just very hard to pick Tampa Bay and feel comfortable going into the game. It's going to be 3 hours of torture. It feels like if you bet Tampa Bay in this one, just because they are going to be behind, they are going to be playing catch up, and I think Baker is playing well enough that he's going to keep Tampa Bay in this game, and it could be close down the stretch, but it's not going to be easy. They're going to have zero margin for error. And yeah, I think I'm just going to stay away in the end, but totally understand taking San Francisco on this one.
Baker's reaction at the end of the last game said it all.
Yeah.
When they had the coin toss,
flip.
they lost a coin flip, and he knew he lost the game.
Yeah.
Because if he had the ball, he had a chance. They didn't have the ball, and he knew they had no chance. And, part of that's because it's Pat Mahomes on the other side and whatever. But a lot of that is knowing that that defense ain't stopping anybody right now. So We're in a good spot here. Liking 6.5. It is it's going to be an interesting game, and we just want to see Christian McCaffrey back, man. Everybody likes to see dynamic players. It's been a long time. So I know. Have you been seeing any of the memes of like your 2-7 league mate who's getting back Christian McCaffrey this week, and it's just them like talking a bunch of shit? Like those are the best. I love those. So can't wait to see it shake out. The next game we have on the list. I wish I had more positive going into this one, B. I really do.
What happened last week? Man?
Hey, man, I think it's a combination. It's something we talked about for sure, and I'm sure we'll talk about it again. But hey, man, Baltimore's the real deal. Maybe the Denver defense was a little propped up on some subpar matchups.
I'm going to get into that. Yep.
That's also part of it. So we have Denver heading into Kansas City for an AFC West divisional matchup. Kansas City -7.5 here. Game total on this one, 41.5 points. V, take us through what you're thinking on this one.
Yeah, I'm liking the over in this game at 41.5. We'll start with Kansas City's offense. It seems like they're really starting to figure things out and find their stride. They have scored 26 or more points in 4 straight games. In Mahomes' last 2 games, He has 5 touchdowns and 1 interception. He's completing over 71% of his passes in his last 2 games. It really seems like the addition of DeAndre Hopkins is really showing out to be a benefit for this offense and for Patrick Mahomes. And then on top of that, you finally have Travis Kelce looking like his old self. 9 or more catches in 3 of his last 4 games, and 70 or more receiving yards in 4 of his last 5. So if you're going to have Patrick Mahomes playing well, if you're going to have Travis Kelce playing well, and then you add in DeAndre Hopkins, very, very difficult offense to stop. Going up against a Denver defense that was playing like a top 2 or 3 unit going into last week, got kind of exposed against a good Baltimore team. And like you said, going back through their schedule so far this year, it does feel like a lot of their success defensively, I mean, not to take away too much from them because they're still a good unit, talented unit, well coached, but they have had the benefit of playing some weaker opponents, whether it was the Justin Fields led Steelers, the Jets when they were going through all of their struggles earlier in the year, the Raiders, the Saints with Spencer Rattler, and then obviously the Panthers that we already talked about. So definitely played a lot of subpar offenses. Now they're going to have to play a second straight good offense, and I think probably not going to have as much success as we saw from them early in the year. And I don't think it's going to be too difficult for Kansas City to score in the high 20s in this game. Denver's offense, I think, despite only scoring 10 points last week, I'm still not like terribly concerned about them. I think they moved the ball rather well. I was not super concerned with what I saw from Bo Nix. He had the early turnover. I think it was the first play of the game, but after that, I thought he looked fine. They had over 300 yards of offense last week. That was the third straight game where they had over 300 yards of offense. I think they're still good enough to score like 17 points in this game. So I can see a final score of like 27-17, comfortable over in this game. Shouldn't be too difficult to reach this one.
Yeah. And, you spoke on it just a second ago, but Denver over in 5 straight. Kansas City over in their last 2 after going 4 straight unders prior. And it seems like, Kansas City kind of plays to their opponent. But, I mean, they didn't. The game against Tampa Bay for Kansas City wasn't quite as close as it ended up being at the end. Like Baker needed a miracle to take it down there to tie it. And then, I mean, the rest is history. It still ended up, a 6-point game or whatever. So that's definitely one of those things, that we're cognizant of. And the Denver defense, man, it's now a question mark because it is something we have to watch. You do have to take into account games against quality opponents versus games against subpar opponents. And Denver has a lot of performances against subpar opponents. So something that we're going to have to see moving forward for sure. And of course, I'm going to be very, very locked in on this one. Another note, Denver doesn't usually play very well at 11 o'clock. Now, granted, they don't have to travel. That's a plus, but something to keep in mind. The next game on the list is the first one of the late slate we have. We both have a little bit of skin in this one. The Jets head into Arizona to take on the Cardinals. They are 1.5 or 2-point favorites on the road, being the Jets. Game total on this one, 46.5 points. I'm on the side of Arizona. I just have to come out, rip off the Band-Aid. I don't know. I don't understand. The Jets are the only other team, maybe the Giants, that get the Dallas Cowboys treatment, where lines don't make any sense, and it's because odds makers know the public isn't going to shop these lines logically. So we get opportunities like this, where the Cardinals get 2 points at home. Arizona is quietly one of the best teams against the spread in the NFL. 6-2 against the spread, 4-1 against the spread since the start of October. On the other hand, the Jets are 3-6 against the spread. They covered their first game last week against Houston, against a Houston team that is banged up and battered and not really playing as well as they have, as well as we've seen them play anyway. And that was their first cover since week 3. So I'm not really sure where the instant love for the Jets comes from, or the instant betting value to bet the Jets on the road to cover 2 points. I don't really get that quite. So not only am I on Arizona to potentially take +2. I'm also going to go ahead and sprinkle a little bit on the money line here. You're going to get it at +113, it looks like. And the big thing is that the Jets didn't solve any of their issues. Just because they won didn't mean that they fixed the issues that they had. They still can't do anything in the first quarter, let alone the first half. They had 0 in the game through the first 2 quarters. And when you compare that to what Arizona's doing, Arizona, they're the cardiac kids, bro. They play games close. Since the start of October, 3 of their wins are by 2 points or less. And 2 of those wins came on the road. So how are we going to go against a team that's playing close games, winning close games, versus a team that is not playing good football very well? They were good against, or they were good pass rushing last week. I can speak words. They were good rushing the passer last week, but we talked about this. Houston's interior was so bad. They had a couple of sub 10 pass blocking grades. You're not going to get that from Arizona. They might not be the most stout team up front, but they're not going to just give it up like that. And Kyler Murray has a lot of mobility. He's a very elusive guy. I don't think he's just going to sit back there and get hammered by a Jets pass rush that has been pretty middling most of the year until they got Hassan Reddick. So I don't know what we're really going to see from them. I don't think it's going to be like what we saw against Chicago. And a part of the reason why this Cardinals team is so good is because they're not one-dimensional. They run the ball pretty damn well. James Conner has an 86.2 PFF rushing grade. Shout out to our friends over at PFF. That's 5th in the NFL. The Jets run D. I mean, we continue to talk about it every single week. The Jets run D is not good. They're pretty bad. Bottom 5 in the league in team run defense grade. They have the most missed tackles on runs in the NFL. And it's not even close. They have 13 more missed tackles against the run than any other team in the NFL. Joe Mixon absolutely gashed them last week, had one of his best games, had one of his best grades, broke, I think, 8 tackles. So when you can't tackle and you're not fitting the run well, those are huge issues. And when you come up against a team that's going to run the ball pretty well, they're going to stay patient, and then they're going to hit you with a guy like Kyler Murray when it matters most. And big shout out to Kyler. I love watching his game day vlogs. Keep doing those. If you guys aren't watching Kyler's game day vlogs on YouTube, honestly, they're an awesome watch. And I'm not even like a huge fan of the Cardinals or Kyler Murray for that matter, but it's an awesome insight into game day. And not to change the subject or anything, but Arizona's also absolutely killing the pass rush too. And that's something that the Jets have struggled with a lot, especially since Aaron Rodgers is not as mobile as he was before. When he gets off platform, balls are erratic. They are not looking good when he gets off platform. And that used to be his calling card. I said the Jets beat up Chicago with the pass rush last week. Arizona beat up the Jets with the pass rush, or Chicago with the pass rush, excuse me. 9 sacks, 36 pressures versus Chicago. The Jets O-line is just as bad, if not worse than Chicago's. Over the last 3, Chicago, including the game against the Cardinals that they got absolutely smashed. Over their last 3 games, 66.8 pass blocking grade. The Jets over their last 3, 63.7. So, I mean, something's got to give there. Arizona's not really a great pass rushing team either, but that's something that they absolutely exploded on last week, and I think they're going to take advantage again this week. So I'm liking +2 on Arizona, but I've taken up enough air in the room. You're liking the game total on this one. What's your breakdown of this game? Anywhere that you disagree with me, or what were you thinking on the outcome of this one?
Yeah, I think we're going to have a lot of same talking points in this one. I am liking the under in this game at 46.5. Starting with the Jets offense just does not feel like you can trust them whatsoever right now. They've scored 22 or fewer points in 6 straight games. Last week against Houston was the first time the Jets scored more than 2 touchdowns on offense since week 3. So this is just not an offense that has been consistent or effective whatsoever. They're going up against an Arizona defense that is starting to look a little bit better. I'm not totally sold on them yet, but I think that we are seeing some improvement. In 2 of their last 3 games, they allowed 15 or fewer points. That was against the Chargers on Monday night, and then last week at home against Chicago. In those 2 games, they had 9 sacks, and they allowed less than 70 rushing yards in both games. That's important because the Jets are averaging the third fewest rushing yards per game, and Rodgers has been sacked 20 times already this year. He is on pace to be sacked the most times he has since 2018. So if the Jets are not going to be able to rush the ball and they're going to have issues protecting Rodgers, I'm just not seeing them scoring that many points in this one. On the flip side, Arizona's offense really goes through their ground game. They rank in the top 10 in rush attempts and rushing yards per game. You already mentioned a lot of the Jets struggled stopping the run. I think this is going to be another run heavy, slow paced offensive game for Arizona because why should they do anything different? If the running game is going to work, continue doing it. I'm just not seeing a lot of explosive, high scoring plays from either team. This feels like best case scenario, 24-20 type game either way. Just don't really trust the Jets offense, and I don't think Arizona's offense I think it can be explosive, but they don't necessarily have to be. And passing game hasn't been terrific. Marvin Harrison Jr. leaves a little bit to desire so far as a guy who came in with such high pedigree. Not seeing a whole lot of him, whole ton that I'm like super excited about. This is a Jets defense that is still okay, not as good as they were last year, but I think they still have guys in the secondary, whether it's Sauce Gardner or DJ Reed. So if they can hold that passing game in check, it just feels like a really slow pace, slow scoring game to me.
Yeah, why poke the lion in their strong point? Like,
Right.
if anything, they still have two excellent corners. So I don't know that I'd want to make a living trying to pick on them out there, especially if I'm running the ball really well. So I completely agree. Mike in the under on 46.5 with you as well. And Augusto had a question for us. Is Chase Brown at the same as Jason Taylor? Jason Taylor.
Jonathan Taylor.
Jonathan Taylor. There we go. I'm not quite sure what you mean by that, but
if we're talking like fantasy perspective,
if we're talking
about
from a fantasy perspective, I don't know. So it's tough because I think obviously Jonathan Taylor is a tremendously talented player, but what we were just talking about when we were breaking down the Colts game is that, I mean, we don't really know what we're going to get from this offense, and frankly, the Colts offensive line is really, really good, and you would hope that any single week Jonathan Taylor is a threat to go for $120 and 2 touchdowns, but it just hasn't been what we've seen. And even when you have like Joe Flacco, we're hoping, hey, they're gonna hand him the ball a little bit more. We didn't necessarily see that, so it's really hard to tell. Chase Brown, though, some people are making a lot about the fact that they went and got
Khalil Herbert.
Khalil Herbert from the Bears, but I just think that they did that towards the goal line. I think they are going to continue to still try to get Chase Brown as many touches as they can because he was the more effective back when they were him and Zach Moss. And I think that the Khalil Herbert signing is more supplemental help and not necessarily the fact that they don't think Chase Brown can handle the workload. So I'm on the side of, I would say Chase Brown is probably a better play week to week. I mean, they've already played, so can't really play him this week. But I think from a week to week standpoint, it's probably Chase Brown and more of a matchup dependent from Jonathan Taylor. What are you thinking, V?
Yeah, well, the key is like if Chase Brown is going to continue getting the receiving workload that he has, then it's like a no doubt you're going to have to continue playing Chase Brown. He had 9 catches last night. Like,
yeah,
from a fantasy perspective, if you're going to keep throwing him the ball, and not necessarily that much, but if he's going to get 4 or 5 catches a game, he's going to be a threat to get in the end zone in the passing game. That's like a huge boost for him. This is a high scoring offense in Cincinnati. Interesting to see like how much of his recent usage in the passing game has to do with T. Higgins being out. If T. Higgins returns sometime soon, is that going to relegate Chase Brown to again just being more of a standard running back? Interesting to see, but I think for now, I would continue going with Chase Brown.
I mean, if you're one of your receivers is getting 9 targets, not even 9 catches, 9 targets, you're probably pretty excited about that too, because that means he's getting looks. You're a running back, you're getting 9 catches. Like, yeah, go in. I wouldn't probably take him out. I mean, I haven't taken him out, but I'll be honest, I don't have a ton of running back depth right now in fantasy. I'm kind of hanging on by a thread if I do say so myself. So yeah, I guess so. That's what we were thinking there. If that's the question that you did have. And then another thing too, man, about Cincinnati. Why every time I look up at the screen is this, it feels like it's not even. Sometimes I like zone in and out of a game, especially like if it's like red zone and the Bengals are playing. And you go and look at the stat sheet and it doesn't really say Mike Gesicki had a huge game. I mean, not every week. But every time I feel like I look up, this man Joe Burrow is not always throwing it to Jamar Chase. I know that he obviously did last night, but he's throwing it to Mike Gesicki, and I don't like that. I don't want to see that anymore. Throw the ball to Jamar Chase, please and thank you. Anyway, end of rant. But where were we? Where were we on the topics? Okay, we broke down the Jets and the Cardinals. The next game on the afternoon slate we have is the Tennessee Titans headed into LA to take on the Chargers. The Chargers, 7.5-point favorites at home here. Game total on this one, 39 total points. Some notes for this one. Will Levis, he's back, baby. And it's so funny. I was just thinking when they announced that he was back and we were looking at the line movement. I actually don't quite. Let me see if I have the game up here. It looks like it didn't shift a lot. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it moved very much at all.
I was interested in seeing this because I honestly anticipated the announcement of Will Levis coming back, shifting this line way away from Tennessee. How often do you have the starting quarterback come back from injury and feel less confident that you have an opportunity to cover the spread? Well, that's what we're in with Tennessee right now because Will Levis has not been playing well. And Mason Rudolph won a freaking game, man. Like, what are we doing? Like, I think at this point, you kind of just have to go. Brian Callahan just has to say, hey, sorry, Will. I understand that this is tough, but you're not as good as this other guy. And we're actually playing better, and he's not giving up the ball in boneheaded ways. Excuse me. So, hey, here we go. V, you're on the game total on this one. Tell us what you're liking here.
Yeah, got to go with the under in this one. It's a low under at 39,
Shocked.
but still just got to take it. I don't think you have very much other choice in this one.
Is 39
like said,
low? Is 39 low right now?
Not as low as it could be.
No, I think it could be lower.
It could be lower. That's why I'm liking this one for this week. Like you said, Levis is back for Tennessee. In 4 games that he has started and finished this year, Tennessee has scored 17 or fewer points in every single one of them. In his 4 games, 5 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Now he's going up against a Chargers defense that has allowed 20 or fewer points in every single game this year, including 10 or fewer in their last 2. Chargers are number 1 in terms of fewest points per game allowed so far this year, and they're also allowing the 8th fewest rushing yards per game. Rushing the ball is really the only thing Tennessee's offense does well right now. Tony Pollard averaging close to 78 rushing yards per game. If he's going to get shut down in this game, Tennessee really has almost no chance of scoring points in this game. So definitely liking the under for that reason. And on the other side, Tennessee's defense, if you're just looking at points that they've allowed so far, they probably wouldn't look like a really good unit. But their defense has actually been fine. If you go and look at some of their deeper stats, they're allowing the fewest passing yards per game. They're also allowing the 9th fewest rushing yards per game. Going up against a Chargers team that is averaging less than 20 points per game on offense. Justin Herbert has looked fantastic. What Jim Harbaugh is doing with this team, despite, there's a lot of lacking of talent going on with this unit overall, both sides of the ball, but they're still getting absolutely the most out of the offense and defense. So despite Justin Herbert playing really well, there's just not a ton of weapons for him, and they don't score that many points. Easy under for me in this game. I wouldn't be shocked if this is another game where the Chargers hold their opponents to less than 10 points because Levis is not a good quarterback. So under 39.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And like you said, it could be lower. It could be 36, and I probably wouldn't even bat an eye. Something we're talking about, Tennessee's defense. Part of the reason why they've been better is because they're actually not terrible in the secondary, and they're pretty decent at corner. And that's not because
to happen with L'Jarius Sneed going out, right?
I was just about to say, with L'Jarius Sneed going down, they got better on defense in coverage, and that's a big thing. Darrell Baker Jr. Darrell Baker came in last 3 games. He's played really well. I think he's grading in the top 10 in coverage grade at the corner position. So he's excellent. Jarvis Brownlee Jr., another rookie. He's been playing well enough. Athletic dudes on the outside that can match up with a lot of receivers. And frankly, that's kind of an issue in LA with the Chargers because they don't really have a ton of talent on the outside. Now, they've had some, honestly, a lot of it has been Justin Herbert willing these dudes and throwing absolute darts and dimes. The Quentin Johnson one, man. You could tell that he was not expecting that clean of a ball.
Right.
And he's like, I just need to run to not mess this thing up. And so that's kind of been how it's happened. We obviously talk about Tennessee up front all the time. Tennessee's been fantastic up front. But another note here, let me get my schedule back out here. Tennessee under in the last 3. And other than that, Chargers under in the last 3. I was on the wrong tab. Chargers under in the last 3. Then they had an over. And that was their only over of the year. They are 1-8 in overs. So that's all you got to know. 39, very reasonable. This isn't even their lowest. This is even the lowest Chargers under of the year. They've had 37, they've had 36, and gone under. So
Right.
very simple, very fact. I agree with you there. Last game on the slate is one that I'm eyeing, and really, I just want to rail against the Cowboys for a second and question how. I shouldn't even question how. I know how, because you let the owner be, or not let, the owner is the GM. He can do whatever he wants, I guess. So let's set up the game. Philly heading into Dallas to take on the Cowboys. Philly 7-point favorites here. I'm not unafraid of it. I'm taking the 7. They're going to win by an easy 10, probably even more. I'm taking the under 43 here. Under 43.5 here as well on the game total. What is there to say about Dallas right now? What is there to say? They're 2-6 against the spread. They've dropped 3 straight against the spread. They're 0-3 against the spread at home this year. That's where you're supposed to be playing well. And nothing looks good. Philly, modest, 4-4 against the spread, but they're 3-1 against the spread on the road. And you're telling me they're going to come in on a divisional game in a place that they usually play pretty well in Dallas. And 7 is fine. 7 is not a weird line for them. I would expect it at 7. I'm a little surprised it's not even like 7.5, because when you look at Dallas, 17 points per game at home, 17.7. That is 27th in the NFL. No Dak this week. They're going to have to do better than that with Cooper Rush. I'm sorry. There's no way to put this. And then the other thing being that your quarterback, reports have said, has a serious hamstring injury. Things I've heard were that it partially tore off the bone. And they're saying that he might not go on IR. That he might not
put him on there, like, I think an hour or two before we started.
Okay. So then that's fine. I was listening to the Jerry.
It did take a while though, right? It did take
makes no sense.
Yeah.
And frankly, for them to be like, he doesn't want season-ending surgery, what are you playing for? Now,
2 games against Washington and 2 games against Philly, including this one coming up. You don't have a chance.
You don't have a chance. I'm sorry to have to say this. Any given Sunday does not exist for you right now. You guys need to try to get to the end of the season without having serious injuries that hamper your ability to get healthy next season. And you trying to trot out Dak Prescott after 4 weeks of rest on a partially torn hammy just for him to tear it fully is not sound football. And that's all without mentioning that you just traded a 4th-round pick for Jonathan freaking Mingo.
That's crazy.
I don't understand and do not begin to understand. And I just feel bad for Dallas fans right now. It's tough because now they have to take on a division rival who is playing. They're catching their stride too. The Eagles are back. And part of it is because they are playing outstanding defense. They've overcome all of Jalen Hurts' turnover-worthy plays and all of his kind of, frankly, just poor quarterback play this year. Since returning from the bye in week 6, Philly, highest graded defense, and it's by a wide margin at 90.2 overall team defense grade, second in EPA per play allowed, only second by a fraction, a little bit, to Detroit, who is obviously playing, might be the best team in the NFL right now. We could have that argument, and I think that a lot of people would agree. They rush the passer at a high level. What else is there to say? We knew that they were going to. They play good defense on the back end. Their corners might be three of the best corners in the NFL. I don't know that we see that many teams as deep like that. Two rookie corners playing outstandingly. Cooper DeJean might be the best slot corner in the NFL. Big body, can cover anybody, stays with everything. He's aggressive. He's the type of guy you really want on the inside there. But as a pass rushing unit, 17 individual sacks. That's most in the NFL. I think that was over the last 3 weeks. I forgot to put my qualifier in here, so forgive me if I'm wrong. 73 total pressures. Yeah, I believe this is. Oh, no, this is from when they came back from the bye. Now I understand. 17 individual sacks since week 6. That's most in the NFL. 73 pressures, 66.2% pass rush win rate. That is second in the NFL over that span. I'm not sure what else to say. Dallas's offensive line has been poor. Tyler Guyton came back and plays decently well the last couple of weeks. I think he had like 7 pressures over the last 2 weeks. They still have so many issues. Terrence Steele is not very good on the right side. That's going to be a huge issue for them as they try to slow down this pass rush. I think Cooper Rush is just going to get beat up in his first outing out there. He wasn't that great last week in relief of Dak, so I'm just not sure. I'm just not sure what we're going to get from the Cowboys for the rest of the year. We might follow them around and take a bunch of spreads against them that are obscene in 7-point road favorites and really not bat an eye and do it every single week because this team is that bad. And that's all without mentioning how poor they are stopping the run. And
Saquon,
do I even have to say what Saquon Barkley did last week? Like, good God. This man's jumping over people backwards. And then I saw he's a bad influence because I saw a kid in high school try to do it and absolutely get helicoptered. So
that sounds bad.
Yeah, not a good move. You definitely can't set that thing up. So Saquon Barkley doing things that shouldn't be done on a football field. And now the worst run defense in the league has to try to stop him. It's that simple. So V, anything you're seeing in this one that I'm not seeing?
No, I think you're right on. If you told me at the beginning of the year that I would be taking Atlanta -3.5 against a Cowboys team with a healthy Dak Prescott and feeling super comfortable about it, I would have told you were 100% lying. But that's what I did last week. Didn't bat an eye on it. Covered start to finish pretty much.
Easily.
Easily. That's just where this Cowboys team is. So no issues betting against them pretty much every week. I think your point about, trying to keep these guys healthy going into next season makes sense. Added benefit, you can get a pretty high draft pick. Imagine drafting Travis Hunter and bringing him into this team. How much you can just turn things around super quickly, whether he's playing in the secondary for you or playing wide receiver for you. That guy could single-handedly turn this team upside down. That's the opportunity you have. So just take it easy. I heard they're trying to bring back Micah Parsons potentially this week. Don't rush it. If he's not 100%, there's no need to play him. You guys are not playing for anything this year. It's CeeDee Lamb got banged up last week. Don't do anything crazy with these guys. Chill out.
Yeah. Go ahead and get the second overall pick because we know that the Saints are having the first one. So take the second overall pick and then go ahead and have your decision because they're going to take, I don't know, Saints what? They're going to take, man, it's tough.
You got to take a quarterback, right?
I'm taking Cam Ward, baby. If I'm the Saints, I'm taking Cam Ward. So you got Cam Ward going off first. You get the second pick. You get your pick between Travis Hunter and who I think that they're going to take, and I feel so bad about it, is Ashton Jeanty. Who
you can't take him that high, though, right? Maybe if they were in the teens or something, you could take him. But...
You don't think Jerry would take Ashton Jeanty at 2? Now, would anybody else? No. And that's not necessarily a knock on Jeanty because he's phenomenal. Right? Yeah. It's the position, but I don't think many other teams would. But I think Dallas would.
That's going to be interesting.
Dallas would. Yeah. So that's going to be a good one. That's all the Dallas news is going to be for the next month. So Dallas fans, sorry. It's going to be a tough one. All right. That does it for us, though, V. That's the last game on the slate, and that wraps us up for week 10. 10 weeks down. Only 10 more to go, technically, I think, for us.
8 more regular season weeks, and then we got the playoffs.
And then we got the playoffs, and then it's real fun. Then we get the real fun. All right. Anybody isn't in our Discord, go hit us up in there. That's where you get all of our other picks, all of our primetime picks. You can ask us about picks for any game that you want, and we'll give you our breakdown of what we're thinking. You can also drop your picks, and we'll give you our inputs and all that. So hit up our Discord, importantnonsense.com, to become a member to get in there. You can also hit up all the fantasy guys, get their advice on your lineups, on your start sits, on all your trades. And also hit up all of our shows. We've got shows every single week. Jason's on here before Thursday and Sunday, helping you guys with start sits. I know you guys are already all in there, but go hit him up. And yeah, I think that about does it. V, do you have any parting words for the folks at home?
Definitely come join the Discord. We have a couple really good primetime games this weekend, and I got a pick on both of them. So definitely come check those out. While we get time, we can talk about any other bets you guys have. But yeah, enjoy the slate this weekend. We'll catch up next week.
It's going to be a good one. And until next time, everybody, good night. Good luck.